So hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lead Seat. This is Dr. Marilyn Clark, and I am president and founder of Clark Consulting Group. Today, my guest is Radhika Seshan. And Radhika, I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about your background before we jump into our topic. The topic today is going to be around a balanced approach to leadership. So Radhika, tell me a little bit about yourself and your background.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Clark, for giving me the opportunity to have this conversation today. First, I want to wish everyone a wonderful new year. Happy 2024. And this is the season where we start the year with intentions. So I'm wishing you all the very best as we begin. My background is, as you may be able to hear, is I came to the US as an international student and did my PhD in economics and went on to work in Bell Labs, which is a leading research high-tech organization that was originally headquartered in New Jersey. And from there, I moved to the UK, came back, and after an acquisition of the company, left and went into higher education, entirely accidentally, if you will. I was invited and I took the opportunity up. And so it's been 15 years in higher ed, and I worked in both East and West Coasts in nonprofit and private and public institutions. And broadly experienced being a leader and having leaders in both technology and in higher education across a few continents. So I'm really excited to share my insights with you today, and of course, would love to also welcome any insights that you might share.
Okay. Oh, great. So, Radhika, we're just going to be free flowing here. I know we had talked about how important a balanced approach to leadership is. And so today, when we're thinking about new goals for next year and the cultures and organizations, what do you think about what leaders, two aspects, sort of gaining control over what are we able to do to set the tone and the culture as leaders, and then also what are some practical tips that maybe leaders need to think about when it comes to balancing, having a balanced approach to leadership. And if you'd be so kind as to share some of your experiences that you've had in this area.
Thank you. We all know that there, in the popular press, there's a lot of information about how Europeans approach balance and how Americans typically approach balance. And now generationally, as new generations of workforce transforms, and there's Gen Z after Gen X and Gen Y, and the boomer generation, the approach to balance and setting priorities has also shifted. So as leaders, we have often workers of all ages, staff and members and mid-level managers and senior leaders who come from many of these generations. And so the word balance for me, has become very personal. I think the most effective lessons one learns are when one stumbles across a mistake. And for me, I learned that I need to set goals for myself to be a balanced leader in order to both demonstrate my values around people and valuing people as they are, but also to lead a more holistic, balanced life. Because the more one can focus on oneself and think about what it means for one, the more one is able to also set the same tone for the organization. So what does balance mean?
Right.
Balance in all things is about deciding when work and personal priorities can overlap, intersect, go up and down while maintaining balance. Balance is not a steady state, right? If you think about balance, you tip back and forth, but you never fall off,
Right.
right? So how do you create an adaptive behavioral style and a conscious approach to managing stress
Mhm.
while addressing work and personal priorities? That's balance.
Mhm.
What could be some examples of work priorities? As leaders, we have made commitments for the organization. If we are middle managers, we're making them to our senior leaders. If we are executives, we're making them to the shareholders or boards of trustees or other higher ed or executives in institutions. Is it an option for us to just say, well, you know what, I'm just going to take some time off? Inevitably, especially I think women have often been told historically that we're balancing work and family.
Mhm.
So in some ways, we are thinking in lenses of balance, but we don't quite think about it as choosing both with intention. We think they are both default.
Right.
So we ride the wave. I come from San Diego, so I think surfer context,
Right.
rather than actually practice being on the board. So what does practice look like?
Right.
So one thing I think about is demonstrating that balance through specific actions gives people the freedom and really the unspoken authority, if you will, and creates an environment where others can do the same. What would be a good example? When I'm out on vacation, I name a delegate, and unless it meets a certain threshold of urgency, I tell my team, you can take care of it. I set up the delegation such that they can.
Mhm. Yeah, that empower.
And that alone
Right.
creates that, right?
That
It
empowerment.
sets the tone.
Yes. Go ahead.
So that would be the kind of thing I start with.
All right.
How easy or hard is it to do?
Mhm.
Well, you might ask, well, I don't have people who I can do that with. Well, then I would turn around and say a core aspect of leadership is to become dispensable.
Oh, I've never looked at it that way, but that's a very interesting lens to look at it through, to be dispensable. And in being dispensable, I like to take that a little further.
Sure.
When we say dispensable, you're saying that being able, your team to be able to not totally function without you, but to be able to handle things in your absence, in the event, like you say, I'm dispensable, I'm away, I'm on vacation. And so how does a leader kind of get that across to their team and grooming their team? How would they go about that?
My best experience was when I was in England, right? We built a team of about 15 people, and we were starting a brand new initiative. We were working with a technology that I certainly didn't know. I just arrived fresh from the US. And I didn't know the technology, but I was told that I need to generate hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue in 3 years across the world. Now, where do you begin? You begin by hiring the right team.
Okay.
You will make mistakes. There, inevitably you're about, I would say my batting average is probably 60%. In that team, I had 70-80% of incredible performers. And then a few people that perhaps were great, but maybe not quite the right fit for what we were trying to do.
Mhm.
It was difficult to explain when you don't have a goal, right? It's a very startup, small business kind of environment that I found myself in. So as when the climate changes, the team has to change. So what do you hire for if you're trying to create a really strong team? Because in a startup, especially in a small business, entrepreneurs and owners feel very much like they are indispensable, right? They're setting the vision, they're in charge, they have to make every executive decision, and then you have massive burnout. With scale comes people exiting because they're like, oh, I couldn't leave before, but I've got to go. My life is waiting for me, right?
Right.
So teams turn over when there is pressure cooker level stress. So, but you have goals and people have signed on to them. They knew, right? So one thing that we created one thing that I thought about was, am I hiring people who are expert at something they already know? Or am I hiring people who may be expert at some things, but have demonstrated the ability to learn things? Because that learnability skill is the core aspect of being versatile. And being versatile is the core aspect of having a team that can deal with whatever comes their way. And the leader is really part of that experience. It's not directive, it's not a star model, hub and spoke, where I issue orders or ideas to one, they come back and report and tell me this. And then the organic definition of a team that moves towards its goals involves team members who are willing and able and feel trusted to take the kind of risk that's within a defined scope of possibility. Now, as the team matures, the scope of what they can do expands, right? And that's where balance comes in. Because everybody learns as just a leader, and the leader can scale up the rungs of becoming more strategic and less tactical. And that's when one becomes indispensable to the future, but dispensable to the present.
To the present. Okay. Nice. I like that. Yeah. And so with that, I like that concept of dispensable. I know that probably a lot of leaders may choke on that word, because or see it as something, as a threat, or to their role as leader. But in taking, if that dispensable being indispensable and dispensable, and if we were to think about it on the flip side, when we were talking about that leader balancing outside of work, how does all of that play into it? That dispensable and indispensable, when we think about a leader outside of work having balance.
So I think that I'm grateful for you asking for more kind of clarity of what we are talking about. Because that is a word that's scary. I mean, when you think about people being let go, right? It appears like they're dispensable. I've been laid off, right? It's an experience I can relate to. And the organization was merging with another huge organization. It's the private sector, and these things happen, especially in technology. And I was on vacation, having my balance. When I got a call from my then recently reorganized manager, who said, your position has been eliminated, and you have 21 days to either find another position in the organization or, leave. There was a package, right? And I was sitting in my mother's living room in India. And I just spent, decade in this company. I was well regarded. I was doing really well. And so it was kind of a shock to my system. And my brother walked in and he said, "Oh, you're looking down." And I said, "Well, I've just been told I have 21 days to find another job or leave." I contacted all my colleagues and friends, and pretty soon I had a few open positions. One was even available to me. in 48 hours, because it was happening everywhere, and we were trying to place people, and it's the right thing to do, because you never want to lose talent, right? So being dispensable is not about being untalented. Sometimes it's just about not having a spot where you are, right? And so I felt dispensable. And I was talking to him, and he said to me, you know, every year you come on vacation and you say to me, I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that. I wish I could start my own company. I wish whatever, right? But you then go back to the same job. And this was the time when the dot-com bubble was huge and it had just burst.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of people who had, launched successful companies, right? And so I was looking at them thinking, why am I not one of them, right? It's the usual thing that happens to you if you're in an industry. And I thought, this light bulb went off on my head. And I thought, you know what? I am indispensable to me. So let me go and find what I really want to do, right? Maybe defaulting to the place I began, which was a wonderful place. I don't think there was a single organization that I worked for that has not been amazing to its people, to the work, and to the mission. But I just called all my colleagues and said, thank you. I'm going to find another thing. So I think becoming a leader involves taking charge of your destiny.
Okay.
And staying a manager involves being present in whatever you are continuing to do. The question is, are we ready to let go of the comfort zone of managing the known to managing the unknown? Because managing the unknown is becoming indispensable.
I see. Okay.
Right. And that's a leader. And I think often we debate about, when does a manager become a leader? A manager becomes a leader when they transition to becoming indispensable for the future and dispensable for the couple of weeks they're on vacation. Right? We're not talking about taking off for a year or two. We're talking about a defined amount of time with structured delegations that allow people to experience what it's like to be in the hot seat for a couple of weeks.
Okay.
And that trust builds versatility in the team. You're always there. You can always, now you have mobile phones that work everywhere, right? So you can text me in, the Philippines if I'm there and say, hey, I got a problem. You got a minute.
Right.
And I always make the minute because I know the person reaching out is really looking for my input, knowing that if they make a decision, I'd be okay with it. Those were the terms, right? And there is no problem. I mean, I suppose there are jobs where, the decisions you make in the operating theater and, life-saving jobs and, public safety and so on, where you can't just delegate and leave, right? But most of us are working in industry and in places where the set of problems we're solving fit into the known for the next couple of weeks, right? And that's how I see slices of leadership, that if you're not moving the arc over the horizon or the decade, then you're just managing the present. How does that build your own skills as a leader? When will you have the time to think about the future if you're modeling yourself after and intending to be present because you think you're indispensable to the moment? So you never go on vacation. If you do, you say, I'm going to read all my emails. I'm going to send replies back. So what are you saying to the organization?
Yeah.
When you go on vacation, you'll have to do the same thing, or else you're not following. I mean, you could say to people, don't just take a vacation, don't worry about it, right? But when you don't model that behavior, it becomes very difficult
Mhm.
to think it's okay to do.
Mhm.
That to me is leadership.
Okay. I know we had mentioned about 2024 goals and leaders thinking about 20. So within the context of all of that, what would be some advice or tips as they're thinking, because the year is winding down? I see myself as this type of leader. If I want to move into that space of balance, what would be some things if I was starting to develop my goals for 24 that I might want to think about?
So I don't want to make a simplistic statement that all of us have similar work environments,
True.
right? So let's acknowledge that temporarily or long term, we might find ourselves in work environments where we don't always have control over everything. So I want to acknowledge that because I think it happens to all of us. We're in the middle of a deadline. We have to work weekends, go away on business trips, leaving kids behind with a trusted family or friend or a caretaker for a couple of days. So there are exceptions to everything, including this one, right? So I think for me, it's about intentions and practice, not about resolution and judgment, right? So let's think about what our intentions can be. For me, and I've already signed up to do this, I intend to um, get ready for leading the next healthy decade,
Oh, okay.
which means I am going to think long term because that's what leaders do,
Right.
right? So I'm going to wake up early in the morning. I've signed on to a program which will help alter my diet, transform it significantly. Um, I am going to be positive, not always easy to do,
Mhm.
but kind of just think about what can I say at this moment that reflects the good in it,
Okay.
right? Laugh a lot, go to shows where I laugh a lot. I went to the store last week and picked up a book on writing because I want to do more writing next year.
Mhm.
Um, and I want to become a little more detached
What do you mean?
from the everyday.
Yes.
So, in the London Underground,
Hmm.
there is a sign which says mind the gap.
Mind the gap. Okay.
Yeah.
What
And
does
the
that?
gap
Yeah.
is between the train station's platform and
Oh,
the train.
okay.
There's a tiny gap
Okay.
where the train and the platform, the
Maybe.
step where you take,
Right.
has a gap in the middle.
Okay.
And this is a wonderful way for us to think about that little mental separation. The train is your life going by.
Hmm.
Platform is where you are at this moment, trying to get to your destination.
Okay.
When you hop on the train, there needs to be a gap between where you are standing and where you are going so that you keep it clear of judgment, mostly of ourselves,
Okay.
right? Because that's where it begins. So, what does that mean? Um, Wake up early in the morning. Okay, I'm not going to do it today. It's fine. Skip, I'm going to drink one less cup of coffee. It's fine if I don't do it. I'm going to try the next day,
Mhm.
right? I'm stressed out about work, but I also have to take care of the family. It's okay. I'm going to do half this and half that, right? It's letting go of rigid principles
Mhm.
to create balance.
Mhm.
Because remember, you're balancing the stressors and the opportunities. And if you don't take the moment, you miss the opportunity. Because stress will always take over,
Yes.
because everything will feel urgent,
Mhm.
right? But the important stuff is inevitably things that are, there's like all these health experts coming and telling you about how you need to change your life. You have gyms telling you $0 to join. So there is just everything is going to be great. The pictures, everybody looks amazing. They look happy, they look healthy, they look successful. So detaching yourself from those images and creating one for yourself is balance.
Yeah. You know what? I had to do when you now that you say that, there's something that came to mind for me that I had to learn when it came to that. And it wasn't so much about the professional life. Well, it had a little bit to do with the professional life, but it was more about the personal life. And I had to come to this realization, and someone helped me with that, that I used to work out with a lot, that we can't worry about what, you did yesterday. We have to think about today and where we want to go from here. And so a lot of times we, instead of falling forward and saying, let's look at the possibilities going forward, we want to stay stuck, like you say, without getting on the train and moving forward. And I had to really learn that in making priorities when it came to work, and then when it came to balance with my personal life or things, health, like you say, and family and things of that nature. Because that stress, it at one point did take me over. It still does sometimes, but I have to stop and I have to ask myself, okay, now let's think about this for a minute, Marilyn. All right. Let's look at this situation. And then I feel so much better once I do take it and say, what's going to be the best route for me? And I think your energy that you give out to the world when you do that is so much greater than actually just trying to, push it down or not let, push it down, and it just kind of eats away at you. So I totally kind of understand, get it. And I think that's a very good way of looking. I like the track and the gap between the track analogy. I really like that.
The other thing I'll say, I love what you said, because it's what you do that matters, not what you say.
Yeah.
Right. So if we tell other people to be healthy, then and we ourselves aren't choosing it, it reads like a textbook,
Right.
not like a practice. Right. And the word I use, I think about a lot, whether I'm in a job and I'm in a difficult situation, family, I have issues with unexpected issues with things that I'm trying to do. The word I love the most, and that's one I'm going to use for myself next year, for 2024, is resilience.
Okay.
Because resilience is not about being perfect, and it's not about being right. It's not about things being smooth. Resilience, like you say, you fall forward, but you come back with insight. You come back with, you pick yourself up the next day without judgment. So it's not a grand idea. It's a micro idea, right? Because every day you can be thinking about changing your thoughts, because you're building the internal resilience. And resilience resonates very nicely with balance, because balance, you tip up and down. Well, when you tip down, what brings you up? It's when you're resilient, right? So I feel like, especially for women, we have the opportunity to define leadership in ways that have many dimensions that we can relate to on a personal level, and in a way, in a societal role level, right? That we're not going to say balance work and family. We're going to say we're going to be resilient problem solvers. We're going to be confident in being okay with making mistakes, right? Not confident in everything we do, because that feels unrealistic, right? It's confidence that if you bump into something, you'll correct, right? That kind of mental strength comes from having that gap.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can detach yourself from that situation and say, I'm the witness to my life.
Yes.
Right? What am I going to learn from this that will make me resilient? That'll let this thing go. Maybe this train's not for me. I'm okay with waiting because I'm going to another destination. That sense of detachment is useful if you have a child that's in school that's struggling. You have a neighbor who's a problem. You have a family member that you're having some challenges with. You have a friend that you're having a disagreement with. You have things that are reading about in the news that you don't like. Your own career and your goals for yourself, like you said about working out. All of that, there are going to be tears in that fabric, and the only way to strengthen it is through resilience, right? You tell yourself this story that you're a balanced person, and you'll just surf through it and come back up.
I have found that really works for me well in my professional life when I step back and say, well, it's really, I get it, but I'm not going to let that hinder me, or I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm still going to be me. I'll take it under advisement. I heard it, but then I'm still going to continue on my own path, right?
Join us for part 2 when we speak again with Radhika Seshan, discussing how to strike balance in leadership.